What's up, guys? There was a lot of misunderstanding surrounding the video where I showed the chip in my Hinderer edge. First off, a lot of people thought that it was a quality issue, like something that Hinderer should have never sent the knife to me in this condition. I didn't get this knife from Hinderer. I got it secondhand. It was actually an unused Hinderer secondhand, but I think somewhere between the Hinderer shop and me, it got that ding. No big deal. I mean, I don't really care about it. It had it the second I got this knife. Kind of bugged me at first, but then I got over it. The guy that I bought it from wasn't aware of it. It seems to be the story with everything I buy from people. They aren't aware of the flaws somehow. But he wasn't aware of it, and I just dealt with it. I got a really good deal on this Hinderer. Got this way below what they sell for in the secondhand market normally. He gave me a really good deal. So I kind of looked past it. Second thing, a lot of people heard me say 4 or 5 years to sharpen that chip out, and they were like, what the hell, why would it take you that long? And some people actually kind of got rude about it, telling me to use my knife, stop babying my knives. Well, it really has nothing to do with babying your knives, and that's kind of an ignorant statement. I'm not calling the person that said it ignorant. It's just kind of an ignorant statement because there are many scenarios of using knives and edge sharpening and edge maintenance. So you can't really say that 4 or 5 years of sharpening to take a little chip out is a lot. I don't use my knives because of it. You can't really say that because you may not know the process I use. Drew a little something here. I tried to make this as accurate as possible, and it is actually fairly accurate down to the shape of the chip and the proportion of the chip. The chip comes down about a little less than 1/3 of the way down the bevel, and I actually measured that with a digital caliper, and you can actually see that the chip comes down, I wish you could see it closer, about 1/3 of the bevel. Little less than 1/3 of the bevel. I didn't eyeball that, I actually measured it. So the chip is proportionate in these drawings. People were saying, well, 4 to 5 years, I chipped my CRK worse than that and sent it off to Chris Reeve and they fixed it in less than a month. Or I hand sharpened chips worse than that out of my blade in less than a month. What the hell's wrong with you? Well, good. You can do that, sure. I could sharpen this chip out in less than an hour if I wanted to. I don't want to. And they were saying that a couple people cited that you could get that chip out without steel loss. No, there is no possible way you can take a chip out without steel loss. You can minimize the chip, but even then, you are losing steel. Here's the chip, and it's proportionate again. Here's the line where the chip ends. I would have to remove every bit of this steel, every bit of it, to get that chip out. You can't sharpen halfway down and completely get the chip out. It's still there. So there's literally no way that you can sharpen this chip out without removing a lot of steel. And the amount of steel is exactly proportionate to how deep the chip is. There's just no way around that. Because of this fact, I choose not to do that. I don't want to sharpen out this chip in the blade because, quite frankly, I would be losing a lot of steel. It doesn't look like much, but if I removed as much steel as it took to get that chip even with the rest of the edge, this knife would be shortened dramatically. It may not seem that way, but I promise you, if you think about it, you'll realize it would dramatically shorten this blade. That's 1/3 of this bevel gone, roughly. A little bit more than that, if you want to get it completely out and make it one smooth apex again, you'll actually have to go past the chip, because the chip is not just two-dimensional, it's three-dimensional. It has actually formed a cavity in the edge. So just getting down to the center line or the base line of where this chip is not going to get it out, because you actually have a flat spot where this chip is. It's not just two-dimensional, it's three-dimensional. So even if you get down to this spot right here, you will still have sharp edge, sharp edge, sharp edge, flat spot, sharp edge. You will have to go further down than the chip to remove it, if that makes sense. It should make sense. You'll have to go further down than the chip to make it sharp again. You could remove this much steel and make it even with the edge, but it's not going to be sharp. Okay? Now, with this in mind, the whole reason I'm not doing that is because I don't want to waste all this steel, and that's a lot of steel to waste. Okay, the 4 to 5 year estimate to sharpen this chip out was me being pretty conservative in the fact that I've set this geometry up exactly the way I want it. I've thinned the bevel out, and when it's dull, I will apply a micro bevel. With this geometry, you can keep a knife sharp for years and years and years and years and years and never burn up this one back bevel that I've set. I would like to cite a knife. This isn't conjecture. This is coming from experience. The back bevel on the Spyderco Military I set almost 2 years ago. It's about 28 degrees inclusive. This is literally my most used knife that I've ever owned. I got this right when I got into knives, and I've used it for everything since I got it. I haven't even sharpened through a quarter of this bevel yet, and I touch this thing up probably every couple days with a micro bevel. The steel loss when you apply a micro bevel is so infinitesimal that you can keep a knife sharp almost indefinitely without ever really removing a whole lot of steel. That is actually how I have this Hinderer set up. I have a pretty shallow back bevel with soon to be a pretty steep micro bevel. Okay, now let's flip. That's what I've shown here. I've shown a back bevel with the same proportion chip, same shape and everything. Same proportions. Your edge, you have your scratch patterns. Say this is my edge from the top line to the bottom. Right now this is my edge. All these lines are representing, let's just say, roughly a year. Could be more, could be less, depending on use. You're applying these micro bevels and they're removing such an infinitesimal amount of steel that you could keep a knife sharp for a long, long time and never really remove as much steel from this line to the top line. Okay, so let's say that's a year of heavy use. And let's just say that's 2 years of heavy use. Let's just say that's 3 years of heavy use. I know I skipped a line. Then 4, and then 5. We've just now gotten down to the baseline of this chip in 4 or 5 years, roughly, depending on use. With a micro bevel, it will amaze you how sharp you can keep a knife without removing steel. Any steel, not any steel, a tiny bit of steel. 4 to 5 years could be a really, really conservative estimate. A chip this large doesn't look large, but in the world of back bevels and micro bevels, that's a pretty large chip. I could use this knife for years and years and years and years and years and years and never really take the chip out with a micro bevel. Somebody commented and said they have an heirloom knife that they've used for years that still has chips in it, even though they're not that bad. And it's just due to the fact that he hasn't sharpened them out. He can keep the knife sharp without sharpening the chip out. And that's exactly the point that I was trying to get across to you guys, is that if you're skillful at sharpening, you can keep a knife sharp and remove only the most infinitesimal amount of steel possible. And you can keep this same profile for many, 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 many years and keep a usable edge, a hair whittling edge, in fact. You can keep it for a long, 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 long time without ever removing enough steel to get this chip out. So yeah, 4 to 5 years is a pretty conservative estimate. I would say I could probably go 10 years with this bevel alone, this back bevel that I've set, just applying a micro bevel every once in a while when it's sharp. Keep in mind this is 20 CV as well, and it does not get dull fast at all. Let's just say I have to touch up the micro bevel once a month. That is such a small amount of steel being removed that it would take a long, long, long time to get that out. So anyway, I hope this has kind of opened your eyes to what I meant by 4 to 5 years. Sure, we could do that, but I'm not going to because I spent a lot of money on this knife and I don't want to waste that much steel. If it bugged me that much, sure, I'd probably do it, but it doesn't, and I'm not going to. This is what I'm going to do, and it will take me a long, long time to sharpen it out. It's not a big deal. I don't care. The knife still cuts. It still performs fine. Sure, slicing paper, it hangs up, but I don't sit here and slice paper all day. I actually cut things. And to the person that said quit babying your knives and actually use them, I would really guess that I use my knives more than the average knife enthusiast because, believe it or not, I don't record every single thing I do. So I do a lot of cutting off camera just for my own knowledge. I like to sharpen a knife and then cut a wide variety of things with it and then sharpen it back up just for my own knowledge. I don't always record it. So how much you use your knife really doesn't matter in the big scheme of things if you know how to hone your edge correctly. And there are ways, there are different ways to skin a cat. If you choose not to do this, then that's great. That's your prerogative. But I do choose to do this because it maximizes the life of your knife effectively. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and disable the dislike button on this one because when I give people things to think about, they like to dislike the video. So I'll go ahead and cut that out preemptively. Anyway, let me know what you think, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.